What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Minding My Creative Business podcast. I am your host, Shy Speaks.
And I am your host, Ron Ironic Lee. And this is the #1 podcast for creativepreneurs to gain strategy, structure, and self-development.
Yeah, I should do a clap sign right there. Like, let's do it. Let's clap it up for that. Just kidding. I'm so excited because we actually have a guest in the building. As you can see, we have the CEO of Zoe Communications Agency, Ms. Feleceia Wilson.
Well, if my husband was listening, and he will be listening, he would say, "My name is Mrs. Feleceia Wilson."
Mrs.
Oh,
or Ms. Mrs. We got you.
Mrs. That's what
Don't you ever forget it.
Please say the Mrs. So, the side note, I've been knowing her for many years before she was married, so this is how I messed it up. So
you get presidential pardon, Shy. No worries, presidential pardon.
Yes, legacy. Her and her husband. I know them both. So sorry.
Yeah, we go way super back.
Super back. So
yeah.
Okay. So Miss Wilson, Mrs.
You're doing all right. You're doing good with it.
I said that I'm working on it. I said that you have this agency, Zoe Communications Agency. But one thing I do want to give them is some credentials that you have. You have a bachelor's in PR and advertising and musical theater.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that, please? Can we please talk about that?
Well, I feel like if you know my husband, he has like 15,000 degrees. And so I feel like my two are kind of humble by comparison. I did both of mine at the same time. I did a BS and a BFA just simultaneously. Not because I'm so clever, but because I knew I wanted to go to school to do musical theater. My dad said, "That's cool, but do something else as well. Like, you can do it, but I want you to do something else also." And so I learned about this opportunity to get 2 degrees at the same time if I took a victory lap. So that's what I did. It wasn't because I went in with great intent. It's not because I went in knowing exactly what I wanted to do. The cards just kind of fell in the right place. And I had that little noise in my ear from my daddy saying, "Do you something else too, girl."
But you doing something else. They have all kind of other degrees. You could have done biology. You could have been mathematics. So what specifically made you pick PR and advertising?
I think I was taking a class, those classes that you take as exploration classes. I landed myself in one of those exploratory classes. And it sounded interesting. I had a knack for it, and I had professors who encouraged me in it. My mom is a nurse, and so I grew up not loving science, so I knew that wasn't it. And I knew that math really wasn't it either. I had to get a tutor when I was like a junior or senior in college for a statistics class, and my tutor was like a freshman. So those are not my jam. Numbers in that way are not my jam. Science, not my jam. So I just kind of landed here.
Gotcha.
Now, okay. With it, because those are vastly different, right? You said musical theater. That's what you initially is like, okay, I'm going ahead for musical theater, right? This is what I want my degree in this. You said your dad was whispering in the ear, like, that's cool, but you stumbled across this PR piece, but those are vastly different. And I hear you saying that, okay, you took some classes with some professors and things like that. But I'm trying to put that puzzle together, like
trying to put it together. How did it all land?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, is it vastly different when you think about it? Because technically, to be into theater is to be into monologues, is to be into words, is to be into literature, is to be into writing. So at some point, when you say you had a knack for it, is the knack? Was the knack for it because of the communications piece, the writing piece, the literature? Was there some type of what? How did you know you had a knack for it?
I think I have a knack for words and story. There are those two worlds live in, or those two things live in both worlds. So I still exist in all those spaces. I'm directing a show right now at a theater here in Dallas. And I do briefs every week for teams to create commercials as well. So words and story exist in both.
Wow. So what I hear you saying is there was
put it together.
Right. There were some transferable skills, right? It's like, okay, I have this love and this passion and desire for not just theater, but musical theater.
Sure.
Right? I love the storytelling or whatever's involved with that. But when my daddy told me I needed something else, I was able to find something that still utilized a skill set that I had based on this other passion that I have.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I'm saying. It took really smart people around me to put that together for me at the time. I did not have the words, the access to words, or the experience to put together what the similarities were. What I had were professors who said, come and see, who said, explore this, dig into it. I'll show you how to do these things. And eventually, long into my career, I realized that there was a collision point. There are some incredible similarities between being like a stage performer and a storyteller, as well as a comms expert or comms whatever. Not an expert, comms professional. Let's call it that.
Okay. Side note, ladies and gentlemen, this is how you stay humble. Those of you who are calling yourself experts, yet she says just professional, just specialist, yet she has an agency. Let's get into the agency piece. Okay, so along the way, you have these people that are telling you that, okay, this is what you listen to this. You have this, your brain works this way, right? The transferable skills. Okay, so at some point, when did you like start being paid for the communication side? Let's start there.
Yeah, I love that you guys say transferable skills like it's a normal thing that you talk about. That's cute. I like that a lot. I didn't start a business on purpose. Like I became an entrepreneur, but I think a little before it was like a cool thing to say that you were an entrepreneur. So my company, I started it in 2012. Is that right? That feels right. So like 11 years ago. And I started because I couldn't find a job. I very clearly, after 4 months of being unemployed, heard the good Lord say, use what you have in your hands. At the time, what I knew how to do was graphic design. So I knew how to like provide a tangible product. Thankfully, I kind of been out here in these streets doing some other stuff for some people. And so I had access to friends who worked for some cities. So I'd reach out to my friends who worked for these cities. I knew that their graphics were lacking. And I said, hey, can I start making stuff for you? And they said, yes, they had budget for it. And so they could pay me. I'd done a little bit of research to figure out like, what are people charging for this kind of thing? And so for a long time, not for a long time, for a little bit, ZoeCom was just graphics. It was just like postcards, social media posts, newsletters, things of that nature. And like, think 2012, 2013, we're on like 1 or 2 social media platforms at that time. Like, we're not all over the place. It was just a couple. So that's how I got started.
Okay, hold on. So you said you were unemployed.
Yeah, couldn't find no job. Just broke out here in these streets. And I was a mom. I was a single mom.
Wow. So in doing that, you was like, okay, once again, I'm going, because I'm big on skills, right?
Yeah, sure.
So you had this skill set. Yeah. And you're like, listen, I can do this, and I'm noticing that there is a gap or there's something lacking in these cities that have, once again, cities, they always need graphics for stuff, whether it's flyers, brochures, just any kind of communications, right? So it's like, I can create something for you, provide you a product or a service, and that's kind of how it started.
Yeah, 100%. That's how it started.
Okay. How does it go from I'm just doing graphics to, once again, ZoeCom?
Yeah, there were.
And am I getting ahead of myself, Shy? No, I know we got a script, but sometimes I got to go off because I'm just trying to, once again, I'm trying to put the pieces together.
That's true. That's true. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm really curious of your thought. I'll give you a little bit of an answer. I won't stay on it long. I'll throw it back to Shy.
Okay.
I asked myself a question. I was bothered that I did not know if the graphics that I was making were working. So at the time, like, I didn't know a whole lot about like click-through rates, like all of that stuff. It wasn't a part of my thinking. I was just making stuff. But I just started to wonder, like, are these working? If we give this flyer, if they pass this flyer out to people in the city, are people going to want to come if they see the flyer? Or if they see it on social media, are they going to want to come if they see it on social media? Are the flyers working? And so then I started going into this deep dive about, like, what strategy meant, like how to start making strategies. So our team expanded by a little bit. There were a few folks who were like, yeah, I'll come alongside of you. I figured that at the time graphics weren't enough. So I had a guy who did photography and videography. I brought on another graphic designer. And I had another friend who was broke with me for a while. I will never forget her. She went in deep for a minute. We was scrapping. But she had some background in advertising and account management. So we kind of just locked arms and started trying to answer that question. Like, how do we make sure that the stuff that we're making is working for people? So the next evolution of it was just a question.
Okay. But I love it though. So that, because I'm very big on intentionality. So you approached it with a level of intention. Then you had this question where it's like, okay, I'm doing this and I know I'm good at it, but just because I know I'm good at it, is it working?
Yeah.
And as a result of you asking, is it working? Then you started to delve deeper into that and like, okay, I want to figure out if it's working. So what do I need to figure that out? I love it.
It sounds like you're laughing like, because it sounds real regular, but it's kind of like people do things without ever asking themselves, is it working?
Yeah.
Sure.
Right. Which is probably how you started doing graphics, because they were just making graphics to promote whatever they're promoting, to make announcements about whatever they're making announcements about, but they may not have been, you said they were kind of lacking in some ways. I'm not sure if it was aesthetically or just feeling like you feel pulled into it or whatever, wherever you feel like there was some room for improvement. They were just doing it that way. Right. Until somebody comes along and says, these could be improved. And then what we were improved. That's a good thought.
And I gotta say, like, hindsight 2020, I'm looking back saying, man, God really set that up for me, because I was not smart enough to know what I was doing at the time. I happened to, so the people that I worked for that were paying me contractually to do this work, I had a relationship with them because I'd been a volunteer. So I'd sat on like boards and I'd been I was like the young person in the community who got voluntold to be a part of the Chamber of Commerce or be a part of these commissions that I didn't know anything about. But I loved being a volunteer. So I'd been volunteering my services first. So they knew that the things that I did for them that were free, they knew that they were good. So when I then started asking them to pay for the same services, they were happy to do so because I'd offered them for free for so long. And then my name started getting tossed around the community for, you can trust Feleceia to do ABCDEFG.
Wow. So, Ron, you over here like, oh my goodness. Not her story about the free sample. Go ahead.
Because it's so much in what you just said. And I think a lot of times us creatives, we miss out on that, right?
Yeah, sure.
You said, okay, I was volunteering first. Like I was in these environments. I was in the rooms free of charge.
Yeah,
I was just there. Once again, I was there just to offer, my thoughts and my ideations or whatever the case may be. I was just there. But in me being in these rooms, I saw a need that they had. And because not only was I in this room, but I was in these rooms with integrity. So my name carried some weight, knowing that Feleceia, she does good work. She good people. And then when you started to now present them with an opportunity to fund, the services that you have, they were willing to do it because of who you were prior.
Praise the Lord. Yeah. There is a passage of scripture that I live by, and it is, a good name is better to be had than great wealth. Favor is better than silver and gold. So there are opportunities that I will not take, or that I will like pull back from, or I even take the L. Like, I will take the L to keep my name. As long as like I walk away with my name, it might take a hit, it might take some bumps and bruises. It's not going to be unscathed, but I want to try to maintain as much as my name and my integrity as possible. So yeah, name is really important to me.
Yeah.
Or another thing that you said was important that we went by earlier. You said that you was wondering what was in your hand. So you was like, okay, I have what's in my hand, and where's the need? Where have I been offering free samples? Where can I offer help? Right. But you said that you had done some research on the going price for like graphic designers in that space.
Yep.
Because we went straight into, the people who are contracting me. So you went straight into like contracting, right? Which is a whole different, because like there are some people who start offering a service and they kind of do it on the individual basis. They're working with like people who do, like, hey, a $50 flyer and a $25 logo and so you're saying you were doing graphics, but you were kind of doing like graphic spreads or something because contract. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I would just try to figure out, and still to this day, I'm usually trying to figure out what the client needs because they normally don't know. So I would listen to like what it is that they were trying to accomplish and say, okay, I think you need A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and that will cost about this much. And of course, like I'm thinking like I got to make as much money as possible because I got to pay my rent. Like this is all I have to pay my bills, and I have a child. So I'm thinking about like how much can I put inside of this thing so it feels more like a package than it feels like a one-off,
Yeah.
A package. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I know you got a thought. Go ahead.
I have a ton of questions. So I want to kind of rewind this a little bit, right? Because I do not want to miss the fact that once again you went to school for musical theater.
Sure.
Right? So you came out with a degree in that, but you also came out with a degree in PR and advertising.
Yes.
So when you decide, okay, I'm unemployed and I am I got bills to pay. I got a baby. I got bills to pay. I got bills to pay. So let me utilize this skill set. Did that other side of you, that musical theater side, was that side laying dormant or no? Okay. Was it laying dormant? And if so, how did you deal with that? Because I am dealing with a lot of creatives. If we not expressing ourselves creatively the way that we want to create, then we feel some kind of way and we have some challenges, some struggles there. So speak to that.
My drive was just coming from a different place. So I didn't feel compelled to push myself into musical theater. Thankfully, the opportunities have just consistently come for the past. I graduated in 2006. So, 14 or so. 17 or 18 years ago. Yeah, my youngest nephew is 17, and I graduated the year that he was born. So yeah, for like the last 17 years, the opportunities they've come pretty consistently. So my motivation was not like my creativity. Okay. Like, I gotta get out here and express myself. That's not necessary. My motivation was my child. So like I've always been blessed to do the things that I love to do. But I was passionate about making sure that my child was taken care of.
Come on.
Yeah. So
come on.
That's strong. That's a why. You had a very, very strong why.
Yeah.
So, did you just know that had you pursued musical theater that it would not have paid the same as
100%?
Okay. Or just 100%.
Yeah.
I get to it as quicker, like, because you knew you could easily, no graphics, I can get to this quick. I've already been volunteering here. Was it a matter of speed, or was it a matter of like it just won't pay? I probably won't make as much doing,
Both. I have a lot of friends. So I would go the Broadway route. I'm a musical theater performer. So our high is Broadway. There are a lot of musical theater, thankfully, opportunities now in film, but the trajectory has been for most musical theater performers is Broadway. That life is tough. That is a brutal, fulfilling for many life. I started believing, like when I was in my early 30s, that if I stayed in Dallas, I could probably like get my fix, get paid well, because theater performers here professionally still get paid pretty well. I don't think it's enough for the kind of life that I want to live to be able to do that exclusively. And by kind of life I want to live, I don't just mean financially, but like in Dallas, we rehearse at nighttime. So it means that I would be away from my kid. It means that I would have to like change how my day was structured. And so it was just like, which kind of life would I like to have? And so like you just like you weigh it up and you count the costs and you determine which one is the better buy.
Right. And I know the reason why you asked that is because we always figure out when people are multi-talented, multi-passionate, so how did you decide which one to pursue? Like at the time you were hungry and you had a strong why, but it's like I could easily just go hard after this.
Yeah.
You know, or I can focus on this. So sometimes it's like a matter of, it's not that like, hey, I'm deciding I'm not going to focus on theater. It's I'm deciding to focus on the one that's giving me, I'm hopping in a vehicle that's going to get me there faster, right? I'm hopping in one that's going to, so not necessarily that you lost focus on it, but it's like the energy that I'm putting inside of it. Like, I'm just going to put more energy here. So
some of that, I've been a big believer of two things. One, I'm a big believer in timing. So the more I've matured, the more I've kind of learned how to just rest in timing. If I try not to like force things to happen. If it doesn't seem like they're supposed to happen, I don't force it to, but I will continue to like ask the questions and unpack it until I land at a resolve. So I'm a big believer in timing, and I'm also a big believer that the answers usually exist around you somewhere. So like if you have to jump way over there, it's not over there. You kind of have to like look around you at the time, see what's going on, and like calculate, consider, count it up, and figure out what happens. Now, I say that because that's all I was doing. It wasn't that I was like, oh, I think this is going to get me there faster. It's that I've done the things that made spiritual and mental sense at the same time. So for me to make jumps into like going hard in the paint in the Broadway, like there's never been a time that made sense. There's never been a time that like I had the right deck of cards, that the timing was working. It's never been that way. Right. And I just I've never been the kind of person that's like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to consider everything going on around me, and I'm going to go do something polar opposite of that. That's not my MO. So maybe I'm calculated. I don't know.
No, but you have a certain level of self-awareness that I think is key in creativepreneurship, right? Just I think in life in general, but especially if you are creative and you're going to take on the endeavor of creating a business. So the fact that you have that and you were able to get to this point, I think is phenomenal. But I know we got some other,
Oh yeah, no, yeah. And I was gonna say, and on top of that, like so you didn't say I'm abandoning this, because you said earlier that you still do it, and you understood that, hey, going to New York's Broadway or going international, like that probably was out of the scope for what I have right now. But if I stay in Dallas, which is a pretty large market, I could still make some funds here, but I'm going to put my energy here because this energy is going to give me this lifestyle. So I like the fact that you just chose where to place your energy based on what you were trying to get out. I also want to bring up something you said earlier. You said this word like all over the place. Like it could kind of seem like for people who are multi-talented that they're all over the place.
Sure.
But But then I like, maybe it's the rapper in me. No, it is. It's okay. It's the lyricist in me that says, I like how all over the place can kind of seem like a bad thing. Like you're all over the place with all these different talents. But when it comes to what you do, right, which is, we're going to get into that here in a second, after we take this very quick break to pay the bills, we're going to talk about how you do PR and marketing, and you help people find a niche, but then eventually you help them to be all over the place, which is omnipresent marketing, right? So we're gonna get into that here in a second. But first, you got something you want to say about that?
No, I just want to say, okay, it sounds like fun.
Okay, yeah, fun stuff. All right, so we getting ready to pay these bills. Give me 1 second.
What's the irony?
It's because it's us in different color clothing. I mean, listen, we've been doing a lot of talking, and we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to make a statement as well.
Because we've seen people make statements with their athletic apparel. We've even seen people make statements as entrepreneurs. But one thing I haven't seen is somebody make a statement as a creative entrepreneur. So what we have done is we have given you an opportunity to make a statement as a creative entrepreneur.
Okay. So if they want to make sure that they're rocking that creativepreneur gear, where can they go get that?
You can go get that gear from whatstheirony.com.
I always think that's so funny. You love it? You love it?
That was the shoulder?
Right.
Yeah. Boom. Oh my gosh. So, okay. I said that we were going to be talking about how you have a communications agency, and you have a boutique communications agency, and you actually help people to, I'm sure, find their story and then put the words to communicate what that story is so they can sell whatever they're selling or serve whoever they're trying to serve, right? So I'm sure that's how that goes. So this part is for people who are interested in having an agency themselves, and they're going to take their PR side, their word side, their love for graphics, their love for videography. How do you turn this into an agency? So I want to talk about that. Okay, so let you put it in your words. So that's how I said it, but how would you say what you do at your agency? What do you guys do for people?
I mean, I think you did a pretty good job, Shy. Well done. It's like you've been hanging out with me for a day or two. That's dope.
Slightly been hanging out with you for some years, but anyway. Okay, so we help people find their story. You find the right words to communicate that. Okay.
Yeah.
And
so we
use that. Go ahead. And I know you started off using video graphics, but then it has expanded. So tell us how, because you say you feel you want to change strategy and how all of that. So tell me how you use graphics more.
Yeah, so we call ourselves a full service strategic communications company. And we call ourselves strategic communications as a differentiator between like an advertising agency or a marketing company. So both advertising and marketing, those kinds of agencies operate very differently. So strategic comms really does begin with, similar to the other ones, but it begins with like, who are you? Why are you here? Who are you serving and why? And we dive deep into that work. And then we also serve as kind of a different kind of client. So a lot of the like bigger advertising agencies and marketing companies, some of the folks that we service can't necessarily afford those big agencies. Those are fantastic. If you can afford it, they're great. But if not, the idea of trying to understand who you are, why you exist, and finding the words to tell that story can be costly. It can be time consuming. And like, if you don't have a guide to walk you through it, you'll end up spending a lot of money in a lot of different places without really landing on success. So we're a strategic communications company. We've got all the tools in our toolkit when you need them to help you tell your story. So that's a little bit of who we are and what we do. Our company is named after Zoe, the little girl I was talking about earlier, who's not so little anymore. She'll be 14 in September. It's bananas. She's 14, but our company was named after her because Zoe was born with Down syndrome. So if you know anything about people with Down syndrome, then you know that many folks with Down syndrome have some challenges with communication. So Zoe has helped us to learn how to be really good listeners, and she's helped us to learn that everybody doesn't communicate the same way. And sometimes people need a little help to understand what it is that you're trying to say, even as a human or a business owner. So she's kind of the foundation of the way that we think about and approach strategic communications.
I love it. I love it because it's purpose as well, right? It's like you've taken this skill set, the talent that you have, right? The formal education that you have. Now you have this strong why, but then you were able to merge it in purpose, and now you're just doing the thing.
Doing the thing. Say the same thing. Yeah, we're doing the thing.
Okay, so so you realize that everybody won't get it with just a graphic, like just some kind of flyer.
Right. Yeah,
people need to get it in other ways. So you talked about earlier, you wound up bringing somebody onto the team, right? Mm-hmm. Which now you have a team, and so you guys are trying to come up with strategies. What are some of the strategies that you're doing aside from, hey, we'll make this graphic to communicate this thing? What is that?
Yeah, so we have like the strategy that we have for our company, and then we have a strategy that we have that we deploy for various clients. So at this point, we have a little bit of a reputation for the kinds of work that we do. Thank the Lord. So folks usually come to us for one of three things. One, they come to us because they have an event and they need it to run well, look good, be sharp, be branded well, and then they need the event, the brand of the event to match the reflection of their brand itself. So people come to us to manage that kind. I'm glad y'all shake your heads like, yep, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, so they'll come to us for that. Some folks come to us because they need us to be like their marketing team. So there are several folks that we work for that we manage all of their stuff. If they need PR, if they need social graphics, whatever the case might be, we're with them like we're a part of their team, and they treat us as such. And then the last kind of client is probably my favorite kind of client. It's the one where we dive deep and we get all up in their business. They've been like saying words, they've been doing stuff out here in these streets, and like it's not working. They either have confusion on their teams or they're like putting stuff out in the world and like it's not working. People are not coming to their whatever or buying their stuff. So we do a deep dive into the words that they're using as well as their organizational structure, and we see where the mismatches are. And sometimes that process takes us like 6 weeks. Sometimes it takes us 6 months. So those are my favorite kinds of clients. So for each of those kinds of clients, we deploy different strategies for each. But those are really kind of the buckets that we stay within. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, that's great. That's right. I mean, it does answer the question. All right, I'm going to ask you yes. I'm going to ask you a more specific question. So at some point, you first started, you had this then you had this other person that's kind of helping you work on the strategy for these three different buckets you just described. Like this person needs this. We need to make sure that they don't just have a graphic for the event. Okay, here's the thing that comes to the event, but they need all the stuff. So you have this. Okay, so you have this person. So at what point do you go from making like hundreds of dollars to thousands of dollars, right? So you started in 2012. So by did it take like 3 years before you start having other people that you're working with, or was it like quicker? Like, go ahead.
It was pretty quick. Yeah, I didn't mean for it to be quick. Now I had a season where I fired everybody. So like I haven't always just had everybody. There was a season where I was like, I cannot do this. And everybody was gone, and I solopreneured that thing for like 2 years. So I jumped in. So entrepreneurs, you can have whatever season you need. Yes. You have permission to have whatever season you need. So jumped in. It was me for a little bit. Started recognizing these different needs. Had a team, could afford a team. And the team was there to support the different efforts that we saw existed at the time. So I was probably 2013, 2014, like a year or two in. where I started to collect some additional folks to work alongside. There was one other person who was full-time with me, one person who was contracted, two people who were contracted, and another person who interned. So we were like a team of 4 or 5.
Okay, so 4 or 5. So at this point, are you in like this is 2 years, you started 2 or 3 years later, you got an employee, contractors, and some other. So are you like still in like a 5-figure range in that couple of years, or did it like explode and it's like, oh, we're in a 6-figure range as a company? Like, how were you still like in like, because contracts could be like 5,000 and 10,000 and 5,000 and 10 and 20,000 for different cities, or so where are you figure wise in these couple of years?
Yeah, the first few years I was tapping on 6, like it was right there at the door. That's where we were scrappy. We were super, super scrappy when we started. And then when I realized what kind of load we needed to carry, we changed the way that we structured our contracts. I didn't realize it at first, like just remembering our context here, I started on accident. Like I did not start with, I shall make a business plan and know exactly what I will do tomorrow. I didn't do that, I didn't do that until much later on. So it took a few years, but yeah, we started tapping into 6 figures like 3 or 4 years in.
Okay, so you just said something. You said the way we structured our contracts. Once we restructured our contract, we were at a place where we were knocking or tapping on it. But once we restructure, so something as simple as restructuring your contracts puts you over the hump. I need you to elaborate on that. Just because once again, sometimes we think we need these huge quantum leaps, and a lot of times it's just something simple. As simple as restructuring of a contract. So speak to that.
Well, so that is different for every scenario. I'll tell you about our specific one. There were a few things that I realized when I looked at our contracts. There were a lot of things that I was not factoring in to the bottom line. Like I was not factoring in the use of equipment. I wasn't factoring in purchasing the photos and the videos. I wasn't factoring that in. I would factor in the hard costs to get it done. I wouldn't factor in licensing. So there were a lot of things that, like just these little tiny things, I was initially structuring contracts like I was the only person who was working. I wasn't taking the different costs for the different people who were involved into account. So if you're working in advertising or comms or as a graphic designer, there are a lot of costs to take into account if you're going to find yourself profitable. I wasn't even really thinking about how to factor in profit into my bottom line because I was just trying to cover the costs. Wow. So everybody needs a formula. You got to figure out like, what is your formula? If I want to go from being just a single solopreneur, even a creativepreneur, to structuring myself more like an agency, every agency needs a formula. You got to have a formula for your bottom. You got to have a formula for how you're going to make money. You got to have a formula for your contracts. So that's the short answer. I don't think that was short.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect.
No, that's good. Okay, so when you say, some of the expenses, because people need to know about that. Like when you say licensing, are you talking about like, give us some specifics.
Yeah.
Like what are some of the expenses that someone needs to consider when they have a communications agency that you may not realize, hey, this person asked me to do this. I think that it's going to take me this much time and I'm just going to charge them this. There are some other things. What are some of those things that they may be missing?
Yeah, the first thing to take into account are all the platforms you're using to make it happen. So are you using Illustrator? Are you using like the Adobe Creative Suite? Are you using Canva? Are you using Honeybook? Like, what are all of these things that you're using in order to make this thing happen? Are you paying rent somewhere? Like, are you using a corner of your home as an office and you're using that for X amount of time? Well, that's use of your space, that's use of your electricity, that's use of like your resources. So you have all of these other costs that are factored into ultimately getting this thing done. But when I say like agencies ask people to help them figure out the formula for their agency because it can start to get really complicated. So if I were you, I would at least start by factoring in costs that you understand. So look at all of these places that you might be utilizing to make the graphic happen or make the photo happen or make the video happen and figure out how much you're paying on that every single month. You can add it as a service fee. You can slightly notch up the amount that you're using in your hourly fee. There are a lot of ways that you can structure that inside of your contract. So that's one thing to think about. And if you are making a graphic or if you're shooting a photo or a video, does the client own that outright? Or is that going to be licensed out to them? Or are you going to be the owner of it and then they're able to use it for X amount of time for a certain fee? So lots of things to explore when you're thinking about how much to charge.
Got you. Go ahead, Ron. You got something.
No, I mean, because I think that's key when it comes to photographers and videographers specifically. Like, I don't know if they know. I know the clients don't know that whoever clicks that shutter
is the owner
of that footage.
100%.
Yeah, so to be able, like you said, to have that in the contract to where they know, and once again, that might be something to where, okay, are you leasing it? If you're leasing it, then this is this fee. If I'm giving you ownership of it, then it's this fee. But that's knowing that comes with a cost, opposed to just, okay, you hired me to come in, I charge $150 an hour, and then I'm giving you everything on my SD card.
Yeah,
like, nah, you missing out on a lot.
That's right.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, you can also agree to a certain number of photos. So whenever we ask photographers to come to us, if we want to own it outright, we'll say, sometimes we work for our photographers when they don't know how to work for themselves. So We'll say we only want 25 photos, even if you shoot for, 8 hours, we'll pay you your hourly. And then we only expect X amount of photos. We want to own them outright. And this is what we'll pay for that. So if you don't have a plan for your work, your client will have a plan for your work, and they don't know what they don't know, or they do, and they'll negotiate with more knowledge than you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when it comes to communication, there are so many different variables. Like, there's visuals, so that's photography, that's videography, and both of those have their own world. And then there is the graphic and like the design aesthetic, and then there is the copywriting, right? And so who's writing the copy that goes on said graphic or said website or on the bottom of the video, or et cetera, et cetera. So there are so many different pieces. And I know that you are a boutique, so to speak, it's strategic agency. So you kind of work with people. You have these two clients that are like the same. And then this third piece where it's like, you're really tailoring everything for them. So how do you come up with a process? Like, what's your process of coming up with a process to like make it where you have so it's not like so all over the place. Like, I'm working with a client. Where do I start? I have to start somewhere, and I have to get them somewhere. So how do you what's your process of coming up with a process when working with people on a custom level?
Well, I've been doing this for a couple of days. So, a lot of the process has come with experience. It comes with a heavy listening ear. So I know what our team can provide. I know what our services are. I know what we do well. And so my intention while I'm listening to a client is to figure out, how do they fit well within our structure? Like, how do they fit well within the things that our existing process? If I throw our team a curveball and say, we got this client that is left of center for what we traditionally do, I have to factor that into our costs because it's going to affect how I pay them, or if we're going to have to bring somebody else on for it. So I'm trying to figure out the simplest way to answer your question. I guess ultimately, one, I've done it long enough to know how to listen. Two, I try to listen really well to what their needs are. And three, I am not going to create a process that is against the way that our team operates. So it's not going to be something totally different. If it is completely different, then I ask them to go somewhere else, or I'll say, we can do these things for you. but this, and this we cannot do. So we avoid doing the things that are outside of our realm of knowledge.
I love it. I love it. Listen, I can go on and we're gonna have to have you back because there's so much more I want to know. But this has been a phenomenal interview. I'm hoping that our audience has gained some value from listening to you speak about just your journey, starting off once again. Like, okay, I started off here, right? I was going to school for musical theater. My dad whispered in my ear, "You're gonna need something a little more than that."
Yeah.
Not only did I listen, but then there were other people in my ear that kind of helped guide me, because once again, I only knew what I knew, and they could see some other things in me that I couldn't see. So just the importance of having that coaching and mentorship and things like that, and then just having I had a necessity. So I had a certain skill set that I had, and I needed to, be able to provide for myself and my child. So I put that skill to work. But even starting off as a volunteer, so just this whole journey, right? And so now you have this phenomenal communications company. I have more. I'm mad that the time is gotten away from us. I have more questions.
Okay, the time is gotten away from us. We're getting ready to wrap it up, but let's give them some bonus. Give them a bonus real quick. Yeah. Okay, Fee. So basically, you said earlier you came up with this whole idea of strategy. How do I know if what I'm doing is working?
Right.
If somebody is trying to do a communications agency or any type of marketing, whatever, rattle off a list of tools or sites or wherever that they can go to actually track the effectiveness of what they're doing.
Yeah. If you are any kind of brand can ask their people. They can ask their customers. Yeah. So if you are an artist, if you are a photographer, if you are whatever, ask the people around you. Ask the people who are buying your services. Is the stuff that I'm doing, does it benefit you? So get feedback from your customers. That would be thing number one. Mm-hmm. If you are in comms, you need to look at your analytics. You need to look at the backside of your website. You need to look at meta platforms. You need to see what the numbers say. And then the final thing I would do is I would look at your bank account, evaluate the numbers. What are they doing? And I would literally write down the things that I'm doing month over month. I keep a million notes inside of my notes on my phone as I'm like thinking of ideas in the middle of the night. My bank account will reflect whether the things that I'm putting out here in these streets are actually making me money or not. So all of it is actually quite simple. It's a matter of evaluation, paying attention to the things that are going on around you and not being afraid to look.
Okay. I'm going to let you off the hook with that. I'm going to let you go. That was a good answer for how to know if your business is working. I was saying how they can know if what they're doing, the work they're doing is working.
Yeah, that's relative. It depends on what kind of work they're doing.
That's true.
True.
Yeah. I like the fact that she said definitely surveying or asking your client, right? Because they know. So yeah, definitely surveying. You got to poll your clients and see. So I like that. But
some people actually put stuff out there. I'm assuming y'all are both musicians. Yeah, I mean, I know about Shy Ron. I don't know. I see the records back there on the wall. I'm assuming that.
I dabble and dabble in music production a little bit,
Yeah. Well, you guys, y'all look at them Spotify numbers.
Right.
When you post something and you can click on the insights to see if people are engaging or not. Sometimes we have a fear of looking, we're just afraid to look at the places that we already know. Yeah. So I know it feels like an easy answer, John, but it's true.
No, it is true. No, you said that what you said was true. Ask for feedback and also check those analytics and Meta. That's both Facebook, Instagram, all of those things. And once you start checking analytics, you'll just start checking analytics. So
yeah,
the most important one was the numbers don't lie. Check the bank account, check the revenue. So that's really not. Okay, I just want to give people a little something extra before we get up out of here.
Okay.
I want to say thank you so much for hopping on with us, unpacking your story and sharing your tips and tools for other people who are looking to have agencies and how to like navigate the multi-talented world.
Yeah, you got it.
Ron, you got something?
No, this was great. Like I said, we're gonna have to have you back. Can I please ask you? I'm getting you here. It's recorded, so you know what I'm saying. Can we trust that you're gonna come back and have another episode with us in the future?
In the words of my daddy, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. Up here.
All right, and then I actually want to thank those of you who are tuning into this, who watching, who stayed around all the way to this point. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Mind and My Creative Business podcast. We really, really, truly appreciate it. One of the things I like to say before we get out of the podcast is a mantra for us to quote. And so here's what I want you to do. I want you to repeat after me. I want you to say this out loud. All it takes is intention. Consistency. And laser focus. To mind my creative business.
To mind my creative business.
All righty then. Thank you guys so much for saying that with us. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Peace.